Hey, welcome to Greatest Golfer. I am Todd Franco, the guru of greatest. So golf's not exactly being played today, but golf's our conversation today with one of the most key folks integral to getting greatest golfer going, Mr. Ed Muransky. How in the hell are you, sir?
I'm doing great. How the hell are you, Todd?
Of all the titles you've had in life, talk to me about the title of Grandpa.
I'm up to three, and God Almighty, it's awesome. You see your legacy. You're so proud of your kids, and it's made COVID a little bit better.
So what do you call it? Gramps, Pap, Grandpa? What do they say? What's your name?
I am Grandpa.
Grandpa? And what's Chris?
She would not be Grandma. She's Gammy.
Gammy?
Gammy, yeah.
That's awesome. Or what's different about three grandkids as opposed to three kids?
The responsibility of them. You could take them, you could spoil them, you could rile them up, and then you hand them over to mom and dad. You go home and ask your wife, how the hell did we do that when we were younger, right?
Well, you are game for a lot of things. On that note, thanks for making greatest work. We are year 11 into this thing, and I tell you, I'm just grateful for what you started with there. I tell people the story. You took about 5 minutes to make a decision on greatest golfer. What did you like about it then, and what do you like about it now?
Anything that's great for the community that doesn't carry a whole hell of a lot of risk, I am for. And when you presented that, Todd, it was just, so often we're in our own little niches golf-wise. Who golfs at Milk Creek? Who's Tippy? Who's Youngstown? Who's the Lake Club? Who's Trumbull? Who's Avalon? It was a chance to take something that when you're from outside of Youngstown, we take for granted of all the magnificent golf courses we have. Alistair, McKenzie, stuff that like the Masters are made out of.
Yeah.
And when you have an opportunity presented the way you did it with, let's bring everyone together and see who's the best. I mean, it was a no-brainer. And, from my standpoint, I bought the Lake Club to further Youngstown. And I'm proud that we started 11 years ago, and that thing will continue as long as you want to do it. And the Lake Club's there, and in our family control, that Sunday in August is always near and dear to my heart.
Yeah. What do you like about greatest now? I mean, as far as the 11-year progress, when you see it now versus we started 97 golfers in one event, and now we're 4, 5, 6 events and 300-ish golfers.
Well, the one thing I don't like is that you've never played in it. So you've won every other tournament at the Lake Club. Why not go after greatest? I mean, I'm just saying.
I've told everybody that I win when you all win. When you get a birdie, I get a birdie, and
that's your story, and you're sticking to it. Yeah. To answer your question, I would think, Todd, kind of the fun thing in year 11, and you have to feel the same way. You've been around Youngstown enough to know that every new restaurant is busy the first 6 months it's open. Yeah. Everybody in Youngstown is game to try something new, right?
Correct.
And it wasn't surprising to me that the greatest was a clicky thing early on, right? That people signed up and it was like you took off. But when you take 11 years later and you have people continuing to want to play in it, and it has the prestige, and it gets better and better and better as you fine tune it. That to me, from a greatest standpoint, is the happiest thing for me to see. That, I mean, 11 years of the same thing golfing wise, and you probably arguably have more energy today in the group I golf in as to who's playing in it, who's not, what's their handicap, what division. I mean, hats off to you. I mean, 11-year run in Youngstown's tough to do.
Some of it by plan and some of it by just fluke. One of the things that's fluky that I never could have predicted is this term "make lake." Make lake has become such a desire for the golfers. I think it's a testament to what you've built there. How much of where you're at now is what you'd hope for, and where do you want to go with Lake Club?
Well, for those who don't know the whole story, my father-in-law was involved. Steve Pipoli and a group of investors back in the late 60s, when they couldn't get into country clubs because they were of an ethnic origin that weren't allowed in country clubs during our lifetime, started the club. My father-in-law makes it an 18-hole course, sells it to the members Fond du Lac Country Club back then in 1982, 83. So when I first met the Pepino family, my wife and my father-in-law and my brother-in-law's sister-in-law, they had owned the club, just turning it over to the members. So all of my first memories in golf were there. My father-in-law, that was like his backyard. It hurt him during the 90s and the early 2000s to see Fond du Lac, like other clubs like it, go downhill because there just weren't the people supporting it. When we took it over originally, I wanted to do something as a gift back to my father-in-law because I had a thought in my head that we could make this go by taking some trees down and trimming some trees that you could actually see the lake, that people could dine outside instead of looking inside. And that instead of adding length, although we've added some length, that you've made the greens continue to make them tough and that you added beauty. So I thought with all of that and Youngstown loving a good party, that if you had that beauty, Todd, and you could, have a catering facility that you could handle 500 people at, that upstairs and the revenue generated from that might allow you to do okay. And if you had 300, 400, 500 members, it was okay for the family, and it was something I wanted to do for my father. Not in my wildest imagination did I see the train coming down the track that really forced me to go put millions of dollars up Pollen Road and put the pool complex in. And, all the younger families were just begging me to do more and more and more, and add the bocce courts with the Cassis family when Carm was alive, kind of seeing those bocce courts in the side of the hill. It has truly been a little bit by design. We're paying the bills still from catering, but to see what it's turned into and allowing it to be the affordable option on this side of town, once again, like with Greatest, hopefully the Lake Club is contributing a little bit to somebody that's kind of teetering. Do I move to Youngstown? Maybe that Lake Club just pushes them over the top a little bit to come to our great community. So not by design.
I can tell you from the golfer perspective, making Sunday makes their whole weekend worth it. And when they get there, they're like, wow, what a cool place.
It's fun watching the course that Chris Brown and his crew, green superintendent wise, pride he has in that course. To see a par 70 course that isn't the longest even in town, let alone compared to what's going on out there, and seeing how these guys are banging it, Todd. It's fun for you and me who play there all the time to see our greens and the complexes around them kind of rear their head. That you and I know, if you're in the wrong spot on those greens, you're not two putting. So it's fun to watch that.
One of the big kicks I get out of you is your youthful enthusiasm when that eagle flies by. And Sunday at the Lake Club during Greatest, that eagle parked above number 9 for, it seemed like an hour.
It seems to fly by at the most special times. People have accused me of having that as a pet eagle that I'm paying someone to have fly by. But I mean, how can you not get excited about that? I mean, he comes and eats at our place all the time, at Evans Lake, and is sitting there, and it's just so majestic. And you have all these great things happening with Greatest, and you have a playoff, and you have great shots going, and you're standing there, and on this limb looking out over this beautiful lake is this majestic bald eagle that, when the wingspan goes, I mean, it's just so majestic and large. And, God bless America kind of stuff. I mean, you get chills just thinking about it, but we're kind of used to it now. But anytime I see it, I yell.
How do you organize your business model itself in that you've got golf, you've got banquets, but let's leave Lake Club, pizza, food, medicine. How does that all come together? Most folks wouldn't see it coming together, but for you, it's a way of life and you've mastered it.
They don't really come together except for one thing. Way back when, my father-in-law and I, he taught me everything business-wise. He and I had a lot of conversations, and he and I agreed that most businesses are exactly the same. That it sounds crazy, but the elements of them are the same. That you have all good businesses have employees that are happy. all good businesses have a product. Where do you get the product? Who supplies the product? Who cuts the grass? What's, where does all that come from? And then lastly, who's the person buying the product? Who is your customer? And if you could understand all of those things and treat all of those equally in the way you would want to be treated, and if you kind of orchestrate all of those together, my father-in-law used to call that a triad. He was a musician at heart, and a triad, for those of you like me who didn't know what the hell he was talking about, a triad is when you screw around on the piano and you happen to play three keys together that sound like one. That's a triad. So in our businesses, although they're all different, we strive to make sure those three notes in all of those areas. Obviously, it's totally different cutting the grass than it is cutting your belly open in an operating suite. I get that, but those nuances are who you surround yourself with. We hire great medical people to help me on what goes on in the ORs, but I've never been in an OR. Yeah. I've never made a pretzel. Yeah. We make 50 million of them a year. I've never made one.
Let's move beyond your business and golf and just you as a Valley leader. I see the directions that you guys get pulled in a ton. How do you decide who you're going to dance with and who you're not going to dance with? Because I'm sure you get pitched 100 times a day.
It's tough because there's a lot of needy things out there. It's very tough to underwrite. So, lately with some of the new startups and having such a great relationship with Bob Hannon, the United Way, you let the United Way kind of do some of the underwriting for us. But I think what drives my wife, Chris, and I and our family is you really get so much out of being an unselfish giver. And we tried to look at situations and surrounding yourself with the people and the organizations that are the same way. In that you sat on the Boys and Girls Club, you got nothing back out of that except for how you felt and how you changed the lives of those boys and girls that needed those 3 hours at night. It's very easy to be on the front page. It's very easy to say, look at me, and I gave $10 million to this cause. But I think first and foremost from our family, it's kind of making sure you're doing the right thing and not expecting anything in return. And the way that makes you feel, Father O'Neill told me at Cardinal Mooney a long time ago in 1974, that the secret to life, happiness in life, is being an unselfish giver.
It doesn't always work. Sometimes you get burned. It's nice to have those wins, but how do you manage when things don't work out as well as you hope?
I probably look at the philanthropy side the same way I do with business, is that philanthropically, we try to make the best decision, Todd, when presented with an opportunity to invest in something. Whether it's the Boys and Girls Club or a brand new charity helping cancer survivors or a wounded warrior type project. You try to make as good a decision as you can based on the facts in front of you. I never spent time, maybe a little bit of time, but not a lot of time thinking about the mistakes you made, because none of us out there ever wanted to make a mistake on the time we were making the decision. You try to make the best decision with the facts, circumstances around you. And really the same thing is true, on the business side. Early on, in the 80s and 90s, we thought we had, a new way of people eating around the country, because we were down in South Carolina. Everyone loved Shoney's. Yeah. My father-in-law and I, and my mother and my sister-in-law Mary and my wife, we invested in Shoney's, and started out like gangbusters, like everything does in Youngstown. And all of a sudden, we had 4 real estate locations. We didn't know what the hell we were doing in food operations, and lost our you-know-what. It taught us a lot on, at least me, being new in business at the time, how you stand behind the commitments you make to banks, and how you stand behind commitments to people that work for you and how you work your way out of those things. So, we never, when we got into that, thought that that was going to be a negative situation. And when it was time to close it up, you kind of put all the wagons around and you get it done.
When you take that approach and box it up and move on and get out of it, circle the wagons, you said. Obviously, you're from here. I've been here since 2007. A lot of passion, a lot of ambition about trying to get Youngstown to the next level. What do you like about the starts? Where do you struggle with the stops? What do you see for the Valley in the next 10 years?
I grew up on the south side of Youngstown. I love Youngstown. We lived in a couple areas of the country. I played football in a couple areas of the country. And I have my great friends here. I have my family here. And there will be a piece of me here for the rest of my life. From Youngstown's standpoint, we've been back now since 2002, I think. And over the 18-year period, I have seen such a vibrancy and an excitement in kids my children's age. So the mid-30s, to the mid-20s, I think we're beginning to keep those kids here. There's, obviously with Zoom, with being able to work from home, there's a lot of jobs that are happening that kids used to be in New York City that they're now sitting in Poland, Ohio, doing their work. So what I thought was happening in 2002, the mindset of poor us, and it's us against the world, and the ethnic way of being so negative and expecting so many things negative and being against each other. I truly think and feel, Todd, that as we go year to year to year, that we're just a little bit more leadership and pulling together a way of being back at it. I think what's going on in Lordstown is magnificent. I am so crazy about seeing what we could do with education, and not just from a Catholic standpoint, but the public education side with President Tressel still in position there. That you just want to hope that as the years go by, I think the biggest negative is that everybody wants to live in their own little fiefdom. I live in Poland Township. We have our own trustees. We have our volunteer fire department, as do 50 other little places like Poland in Mahoning County. Would it be better if we could get together and have one school district? Would it be better if we had, one leader that could speak so that when Toyota wants to come and make an investment, that they're not talking to 9 different areas? Our economic development partners, the chamber, do a great job. But I think we could do a better job, Todd, if we continue to work toward doing more and more things together.
You were one of the faces on the legendary Crossing the Mahoning River cartoon that the Vindicator created when Jim Tressel was.
Yeah, who approved that? Did you approve that, or who was the final say? There's conflicting stories. We're going to get to the bottom of this.
I think
President Tressel, wherever you're listening, we're going to get to the bottom of this right now.
Are there gripes that I don't know about?
No, it was a little bit of a interesting piece when it came out. But you know what? When it came out, and today, I'm proud because at that time, Youngstown State needed the leadership,
right,
and it needed somebody that had the organizational CEO skills that a wonderful head coach at Youngstown State and the Ohio State University had in Jim Tressel. And those are the type of things that there were so many people negative at the time, like, are you crazy? That it really was, that you have to be willing to call Tim Ryan up and say, this is something we got to go do. You got to go talk to Sam. This is something we've got to go do. He's the leader we need. I think he's interested in coming back here because there was all the naysayers, always in Akron, he's going to do this. And like, nothing ventured, nothing gained. What he didn't know that much of, or the least of, you could hire. We went out and hired a provost. We went out and hired great academic to educate President Tressel on the things that he didn't know. But he knows how to organize people. He knows how to get them going in one direction to win a national championship. And Youngstown State, you know, Todd, is in a heck of a lot better position today with that ship crossing the Delaware.
Which, by the way, let me pause for a second. I got to give credit. Full credit goes to Robert McFerrin, who's works at a Triad Video downtown. Robert McFerrin gets full credit, and I guess in this case, maybe full blame.
Full credit. Yeah. It's still in my closet signed, but it was. I think it was a huge, true crossroads to Youngstown State University. You know, wow.
Probably the biggest decision we've had in the last 7 to 10 years that's turned out this way, that also had so many naysayers going into it. And yet to go back to that point, and I know some of the naysayers, and they're a little quieter these days, but talk about one decision that's been such a catalyst for the region. I think that hire right there was so pivotal.
Yeah, and from our standpoint, I had discussions with the naysayers. And that's, I think, the political environment, Todd, we got to get back to as Americans, as people that live in Mahoning, Trumbull, Columbiana County, the great valley we have, is we had discussions. There were disagreements. They made some valid points. A lot of them were more perception than reality. And we had some great dialogue. And at the end of the day, dialogue allowed the trustees to make the right decision. But, you know, I respect the naysayers. And I think the dialogue we had concerning President Tressel is the same dialogue we should have in Washington and Mahoning County and every other place. You have politicians who are spending our money. There's nothing more important than the university and our health care for employment as we sit right now in Youngstown, Ohio. We will go as Youngstown State University goes. We must make that successful. We must make it produce as many doctors, many nurses, many CPAs, as many engineers. As it goes, so does LG Chem, so does Mercy Health Southwoods. And you know, that's why I had so much passion for it.
So golf has mulligans. In life, in business, what mulligan would you like to have?
So one mulligan in my life, obviously not perfect, a lot of things wrong, but the one that affects me the most, that I still have dreams about, is I left the University of Michigan with 1 year of eligibility and felt that I was ready to go to the pros and I knew everything, and gave up. I graduated in 4 years. I went against Bo Schembechler's wishes. And what I realized is that maybe I would have got hurt that year, that you never get back that last year of college. You never get back maybe having a chance to win some of the awards maybe I would have had a chance to win. And life turned out great for me. So I'm not sitting here, you know, being a complainer, but you asked me, that's the one bogey that if I could change it, I would definitely have gone back, risked everything, gone back for the 5th year. And I would say in business, probably would have maybe thought earlier on about how some of the children, I have 3 children, kind of how all of them mesh in the business, and maybe earlier on realizing that none of them are me. So in business, I would always put, whether it was Dee, my daughter, Josh, my son-in-law, Eddie, Chelsea, Donnie, our conversations always reflect like how I would look at a situation. So in business, and I'm guiding them, it would be like with Eddie, hey, we're doing this in this mall. This is great. And Eddie would have his opinion. And, I think he was listening to Dad more than having the rope that I had. That I wish I would have maybe in some of those situations. They've all turned out great. The kids have great work ethic. I put the blame on me that if I had a bogey, I would have been a total life preserver as opposed to a tour guide.
What's your favorite win in the last 10 or 15 years?
The favorite win, we talked about it earlier. The favorite win is in our businesses, the lives that we affect. I look at it and say, we're now employing 1,000 people in Youngstown, Ohio. We now are seeing hundreds of thousands of people in all of our offices. The lives that those are affecting, and I get such positive response about your people are so great. They made me feel this way. And, I always tell them, nobody really remembers what you said, but a lot of people remember how you made them feel. My win is that our greatest thought of my father-in-law and mine back in the 80s when we used to talk about these things, that you treat people right, that still works, Todd. That there's the American dream and that opportunity is still out there that, is obtainable. And sometimes when you take a look at the political environment, I think a lot of people, including myself, are just so negative as that can this continue? The human race is damn good. And if you just give them some guidance and have their back a little bit, they could do magic. I mean, we have the #1 hospital in the country for patient satisfaction in Boardman, Ohio. There's a lot of hospitals out there. None of them have the compassion that our place does. But you can't approach something just to make money. You've got to approach something, whether it's greatest or the surgical hospital at Southwoods, into saying, is there a need in the community? What difference are we going to make? Why are we doing this? If you put a good team together, you have a good concept, the money will come.
Well, how about you and I make a pledge that maybe next year both of us get into greatest, one of the competitions. Maybe we saddle up, we have a long drive.
Why don't you get into it, and then I'll help you more on Sunday doing all the organizational stuff. We just have to work on your handicap. That's all.
Trying.
Unless we play, some type of scratch event, but you're too good for that.
Well, thank you for letting me win that 1 year several years ago. I appreciate you.
I'll never forget that. You picked a good partner. I remember that.
Thank you for everything. It's been a great way to be a part.
Likewise, brother.
Be your shadow.
It's been a good 11 years, and hope you're doing well.